Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Stephen, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm also the Vice President of Q Music, and just in case you haven't checked on your app, we've almost reached the end. So congratulations for that, and we're all alive. That's all good. But I just wanted to come on and say thanks to everyone for making this such an amazing Big Sound, and give a couple of thank yous. Firstly, to our amazing sponsors, Arts Queensland, Virgin and Oztix. Need to say also a big thank you to the Australia Council and APRA AMCOS, to our amazing media partners, led from the front by Triple J and The Music, to our Q Music Executive Officer, Joel Edmondson, to the whole team that's brought Big Sound together, but led by Denise Foley and Jolanda, who have been doing an amazing superhuman job over the last 3 days. To our programmer extraordinaire, Nico Byrne. Round of applause, let's go. I'm sure you'll agree that there's been some amazingly insightful stuff on the panels. There's been some amazing artists. It's not a small task to put together 150 bands and 100 and whatever it is speakers. So amazing work, and thank you, Nick. Very importantly, a huge thank you to the volunteers. Big Sound just would not work without the thousands, well, not thousands, there's not thousands, but I think there's hundreds. There's a lot of volunteers anyway that make this thing work, and without their help, you wouldn't be sitting here right now. So round of applause for the volunteers, please. To my colleagues on the Q Music Committee as well, we don't do much, we just do board meetings and tell everyone else what to do, but thanks for all the thought power. To the venues, 15 venues this year, more than we've ever had before, so, and I'm sure you'll agree that they were all fantastic as you were running around over the last couple of nights. To the most important venue of all, of course, the amazing Judith Wright Centre. Round of applause. The staff here over the last 3 days have been absolutely amazing, and we're sorry for putting you through everything that we put you through, but we will be putting you through it all again next year. To the speakers who have taken the time out to attend the conference and not only speak on the stage here, but chat to everybody in the bars and in the foyer, and to essentially make themselves available to everyone. To the bands, of course, Big Sound wouldn't be Big Sound without bands, and we really appreciate the effort that certainly the interstate bands and the local bands put into to presenting at Big Sound, and hopefully Big Sound has been good for you guys as well. And yeah, to the delegates, Big Sound wouldn't be Big Sound without you guys turning up each and every year, and hopefully you guys have noticed how great the conference is growing, and it's one of the great events in that it's not owned by anybody. It's essentially owned by you guys. So thanks to everyone for making Big Sound what it is. There is a closing party tonight at the Triffid, so hopefully we will see all of you there if you've got any energy left whatsoever. But I think that's everybody that I can thank right now. I'm sure there's a few people that I've missed. But once again, thanks to everyone for coming, and hopefully we'll see you all again next year. Big Sound's not going anywhere, and I think next year's actually our 15th year, so maybe we'll drink a bit more to celebrate or something. Let's see. But to finish off this year's event, we've got an amazing panel for those of you that were here last year and were blown away by the poignant, hilarious, however you'd like to put it, presentation from Justin Heazlewood. He's back by popular demand, author of Funemployed, and you may know him as the Bedroom Philosopher. I'm going to shut up now and hand over to him, but thank you everybody for making this such a great week, and we'll see you again next year.
In my life, I've seen... What's the first lyric? In my life, I've seen heartache and pain. I don't know if I can do it again. Can't stop now. Travelled so far to change this lonely life. I want to know what love is, Triple J. I know you can show me. I want to feel what love is, Nick Finlay. I know you can show me. Thanks so much, President. That was just a little excerpt from, it was a sort of 79 more minutes of that performance. It's a maxi single I just released on mini disc. It's a bit of a sleeper at the moment. I think Triple M might have picked it up. I think Jane Gazzo's giving it a spin. It's good to see Jane Gazzo at Triple M in Melbourne. It's an easy gig for her. She can take her CD collection from the mid-90s at Triple J and just give them a spin on Triple M, where it's nothing but 90s. It's a sweet gig. I think she can break the living end all over again if she wants. So that was a bit of Foreigner. We can all feel like foreigners sometimes within our own industry, within our own bodies. We are but refugees. Go with me, people. Within the music industry, we're lost, we're searching. We've come together here to find a place where we'll be welcomed and supported. In this metaphor, I'm Justin Heazlewood, musician / writer / wrists. Authoress of Funemployed, Life as an Artist in Australia, Bernie's greatest living writer. And it's with great pleasure that I present Funemployed, the sequel. Today we'll be cracking the mantle of press releases, hype and gratuitous mentions of which LA producer you're so lucky to be working with this week. Not to name any names, but we're looking at you, Kimbra. And we're going to look inside at the gooey, messy human behind the artist facade, or thereabouts. Hopefully it's some kind of intellectual Cadbury cream egg that doesn't leave you feeling sick or depressed afterwards. And to help me, I've got three wonderful artists from the festival. I will introduce them now. Jen Cloher's third album, In Blood Memory, made the final shortlist for the Australian Music Prize. She runs the workshop I Manage My Music, specifically tailored to assist the self-managed muso while also managing Milk Records. Please welcome Jen Cloher. Hi, Jen. Take a seat. Jen, you've actually reached platinum status within the Funemployed community. This is Jen's third interview by me. Ben Salter is one of Australia's most highly regarded songwriters and performers. He has released over 20 albums with bands including the Gin Club, Giants of Science and the Wilson Pickers. His second solo album, The Stars, My Destination, was released this year. Please welcome Ben Salter. G'day, Ben. Keeping well, looking great. Grab a cushion, make yourself comfortable. Anthonie Tonnon's reputation as a lyricist and performer has seen him receive a top 20 nomination for this year's APRA Silver Scroll, New Zealand's Best Song Award. Or a very creative piece of... I've actually it's that bit there where the clamps cut off my, so I think I've just shut down up here. Can someone just reset me? There's a little button. And he's open for Paul Kelly, Ockerville River, and others. Please welcome Anthonie Tonnon. Hey, man. Yeah. Greetings. And I think Andy Kent was supposed to be on the bill as well, but he's not well. He's updating the band's MySpace. That's an industry term. Anthonie, I wanted to chat to you. You're actually here because, well, one of the reasons of a multitude of why you're here is you dropped me an email just saying, hey, Justin, I like your work. I noticed you're doing this panel, and just wanted to let you know I'd be keen. And I thought that was just I thought it was a gung-ho, tip-top bit of self-promotion there. And I thought that was just, it's sort of networking 101, really. The word networking conjures all these sort of awful, sleazy images, but it's actually just communicating on a really basic level. So You found my email on the internet and you sent me an email where you didn't abuse me and you got my name spelt right, which had me on side and sort of sifted out a lot of the sort of fan mail I get. So, I just wanted to say, is that something that comes natural to you, that sort of putting yourself out there? Is it something you've developed over the years?
I think it is something that comes naturally to me, perhaps more naturally than performing even. And I've had to fight my way to learn to be a good performer, and as I've done so, I've become less of a good talker. But yeah, I mean, I looked through the delegate list first, and I noticed you didn't list your email, and so I went to your website and found it and emailed you. And but I did lose some sleep when I waited a good 24 hours for a reply.
Yeah, I did that. I was a bit cool on the old reply. I like to give them the 48-hour cool-off period just to have those 4 a.m. sweats where they're like, oh man, I hope it wasn't... So that's the self-doubt component that's almost instantly triggered by self-promotion. Jen, can you relate to that? The weird emotional reflex we have as soon as we put it out there?
Yeah, it's a bit of a fine line between pleasure and pain when it comes to promoting self-promotion. Because there's sort of, I mean, you've probably all come across some musicians that have cards and promote themselves and harangue and harass and kind of put inane posts up on social media and just make you want to run screaming from the room. But then there are people like Anthonie who I think just come at it really as an equal. And I think that's what it's about for me, is not sort of trying to prove anything, but just talking to someone one-on-one. You know, we work in the same business. I'm going to be over in Australia. It'd be great to catch up for a coffee and leave it at that, you know? But as far as the feelings that go along with it, for me it's just been a case of building my self-esteem and, just getting over myself a bit.
Yeah, there's a kind of civil war that goes on with your own self-esteem as to, I don't know, it's kind of intense. Like, what right do I have to be promoting my inner workings? And, can you relate to that?
Oh, absolutely. Ben? I think more like performance-wise in terms of that, like I have a really great show and be totally in the zone and just be talking absolute shit between every song and then come off stage and be like, God, what did I just say to all those people? Like, everyone knows everything about me now. But with I don't know, I sort of agree with Jen with the business side. You just be straight up with people and I try and be as transparent and open and about the whole thing as, you know, when I approach people via email. And once again, it's really just about, you can't fake. Like, you just got to have genuine relationships with people, like whether they're booking agents or other musicians, or there's just no way of sort of, I mean, some people are very good at sort of, I guess, the glad handing and stuff, but I just sort of have to, you know, it just has to be a genuine thing. Like, it's sort of hard to fake it, really. I don't know if any of that, bananas.
That's our safe word, by the way. I'm just going to step off Ben there for a sec. Anthonie, I think in Australia we have a bit of a, you know, we're not sort of known for blowing our own horn unless it's at the cricket. Is it similar in New Zealand? Is there sort of a cultural bias against self-promotion when it's expected of you as an artist?
Yeah, more so where I came from, which is Dunedin, down the bottom of the South Island. And I remember when I moved to Auckland, which is probably our most networky city. But I just moved up, I was trying to make friends, and there was a band I really liked, Panther in the Zoo. And I had met the guy from Panther in the Zoo at a show, and he found out that I was a singing coach. And so he said, I'll come around and do a singing lesson. And so I gave him a singing lesson, and at the end of it, he said, so what are you doing up here? You know, you've got an EP, eh? And I was like, yeah, I've got an EP. I'm trying to release it. And he's like, oh, great. I'll give my distributor an email now. And he writes an email. Hey, Marty, there's this really great artist from Dunedin. His EP is really awesome. He's never heard of it. You should distribute it. And I just thought, wow, we're networking. and it's just, and he was totally open about it. He was just, we are networking, and I am helping you right now. And in Dunedin, if someone had done that in that town, people would have been really weird about it. And I mean, I started to notice after living in Auckland for a couple of years, and maybe my old friends in Dunedin thought that I was a money guy now, or a networky sort of guy. But I did start to notice that when I went back home. You know, like you meet someone at a party and they seem interesting, and you ask them what they do, and they go, "Oh, I make coffee." And whereas in Auckland, you'd say, "Oh, I make music, but I work at the coffee shop down the road." But in, say, Dunedin or Wellington, you've kind of got to, you're expected to say, "I make coffee," and then that person has to then wait a couple of weeks till someone else at a party says, "Oh yeah, that person's actually in that really awesome band you like." And then you're supposed to go, "Oh, okay, yeah. And very slowly reveal yourself as trying to make friends.
I think we're sort of entering into a culture where people will start bragging about the fact they make coffee ahead of being a musician. I mean, oh yeah, so what is it, cold drip or like Arabic brew? Yeah, where do you go? I'm getting my beans from Colombia at the moment. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess it's like, Tasmania, where I'm from, and New Zealand maybe have some similar. You know, in Australia we have the tall poppy sort of syndrome. In Tassie and New Zealand, we don't even let them grow. We just like dig the bulbs out of the ground and just throw them on the barbie, mate. The truth barbecue. So we're just going to look at a graphic here. As you can see, big fan of the Venn diagram. Dream job, real job, no job. You're touching on themes of legitimacy and like self-respect, Anthonie, and I wonder, when the average independent musician doesn't make enough money from music to pay the rent and stuff and has to have a job to do that, but is also, you know, scraping together enough time to spend on their music so that they're excellent at it. From what I can gather, having interviewed a lot of people for this book, there is no one answer to that conundrum. It's actually a paradox. And I think every artist is in the process of coming up with their balance of what works. Is that something you've had to do, Ben?
Yeah, like I do music full time, but it's full time. Like I was just talking to Anthonie before about, you know, because I do my own bookings and my own management and stuff. So it's like, you know, I've got stuff booked up to like halfway through next year and stuff, and I do lots of house shows. But I'm like one of the few people I know that doesn't do anything else apart from music. And like, as I say, I have to find ways of, like I do friends' weddings and stuff, and I do house shows, and I do other shows. And then also you've got to balance that with like, oh, you can't play too much, because if you play too much, like you're overexposed, and then you can't earn as much money, and it's just this like, right. But I mean, I love it, so. And
playing too much, also, like how much are you tapping your own, you know, creative mojo out?
I don't know. I try not to think about that. Well, my answer to that is that I never listen to any music. I don't read any music magazines. I don't watch documentaries about music. Like about 5 years ago, I just went, I have to like, you know, because I play so much. It's just like, I mean, when I say I don't listen to music, I do listen to music, but not as much as I used to. I used to be such a fan and listen to everything and be up to date with what. And now I just sort of had to turn that off, just because I think because of that reason. Because I was like, if I'm just playing all the time and then just reading Mojo all the time, like I'm going to go insane. So yeah, now I just like read blogs about video games and watch Antiques Roadshow. That's pretty much, yeah.
So a voucher for a sensory deprivation chamber would be a great birthday gift.
Those things terrify me. You know, they're the ones where you get them with the water and stuff. And
yeah, floating tanks. I think they're big in, probably
no.
big in Melbourne now.
No, maybe not. Have you been in a floating tank?
It's just my bath with some Glad wrap over it and the lights off. Ladies. So, Jen, have you reached, do you have a point where you, I don't know, I was going to ask about the sort of the money, life, work, energy balance. Yeah. Like how much stress and anxiety is induced by the sort of balancing act that the average artist
yeah, I mean,
does?
Looking at that diagram, which I think would make a great merch line, is
a good tea towel for your coffee.
I feel like I've been in each of those states. Real job, no job, dream job. I feel like I'm heading more toward the dream job, but I think the dream job has taken years and years and years of just hard slog. And for me, I have so much respect for people like Ben and Liz Stringer and Mia Dyson and I don't know, there's just so many people I can, you know, if I sat down and thought about it, who are full-time working musicians, session musicians, always touring, always recording in multiple projects. I mean, 20 albums from Ben. I mean, what a fucking legend.
What an idiot.
Yes and no. I mean, you know, probably...
We could have a hottest 100 of just Ben singles.
Yeah. We'll talk about that after.
Were we in America, you know, it might be a different story for Ben tapping out his own markets or whatever you were just talking about. But here we are in this huge country with a relatively small population, and that's been something that I've really had to sort of come to terms with. And I'm one of those weirdos that really enjoys the business side of music. I don't really enjoy all of the kind of emailing and you know. It's just so much work. It's so exhausting. You're carrying your own, you know, house on your back trying to sell your wares. And I've had points in my career where I've just gone, so many times I've given up music. Just like given up. And I even sent an email a couple of years ago to my mailing list where I was like, just letting you all know I'm going to take a bit of a break from music. Like just this really dramatic kind of exit. And then like the next year I was out touring and playing shows and putting out new music. So I think, you know, one thing that I came to was like, as an independent self-managed artist, self-funded artist, I have the right to give up music as often as I want and then to pick it up again. I don't think it's a good idea to go and make a public statement about it. I think just to your mailing list is probably fine. But yes, coming back to, you know, just that idea of, I've had some really terrible jobs. I remember I worked at Vintage Cellars on Little Burke Street, and my contemporaries would come through the door and there I'd be in my chambray shirt with my name on it and be selling them wine. Off they'd be going to have a fun night, and I just felt like a major loser in life. I've also gone through periods of being on the dole, and I feel like, you know, over the last particularly 5 years or so, I really started to look at all of the very different sort of facets of, I really looked at my practice and I looked at the business and I started to educate myself. And there might be a few people here who have, you know, come along to, and I manage my music workshop, which is really a discussion quite like this. And also, you know, starting to run a record label, which is really not a label. It's more, to quote Brother Ali, a community organising project. So just a collective of musicians aiding each other to not feel so alone in the release of work. And the big thing for me that has really shifted is I used to be very envious. I'd be like, look at fucking Ben Salter over there winning all the fucking awards, you know, fucking him, I would say fucking it. And, you know, I'd have to like literally pray, like, God, just please don't make me so envious of fucking
It's the
Clem.
worst.
Boot it, sure. Fucking Ollie Throsby getting all the airplay, or, you know, that kind of shit. And then one day, I think just from talking about it and doing the workshops and running a label and not ignoring the shadow, I got over it. And I was just like, I don't have to be envious. It's not a fucking competition. I'm making my art. We're all in this together. It is a community of artists, and that's that. You know, all of the other bullshit that the music industry and all the people sitting on the panels were telling me about what I needed to know about the music industry, when you're fucking making all of your money out of my art, if we don't exist, they don't fucking get paid.
Yeah,
right? And that's not to say that they aren't good business people, that there aren't total legends out there, because I work with them, you know, and they have their place. But, you know, I really realised, sorry, I'm going on a rant, It's turned into Jen Cloher's fucking panel, but I'm just going to finish off.
Big round of applause for all the hardworking publicists, managers, distributors, A&R people who are here this festival. We know how hard you work. And, Jen.
Yeah, look, I love the good ones, you know, and there's plenty of them, you know, but there's also been, and I have discovered this, you know, we're all just going to sit on a panel and know everything, and you're all just going to sit out there, and when you come and talk to us and give us your EP at the end of the thing, we're never going to employ you, and you're always going to be over that side, and we're just going to talk about all the really successful people that we work with, that whole thing. Fucking over it. Why don't we all...
Here.
Why don't, just one last thing, Justin. First of all, why don't we change the structure here and turn it into a room where everyone can sit in a circle and have a discussion? And they can hear something back from us, the people that they are there to serve. They are our clients. We employ them to work for us.
Jen Cloher's Ring of Fire will be appearing at Big Sound 2016. You can sign up out the front. Jen will be running Jen's panel van.
I don't want anything. I don't
just
want
a souped-up combi with you and a megaphone, just cruising around Brisbane, telling it how it is. You've covered all my topics, Jen, and thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to go to a soundbite from Brian Ritchie, curator of Monophoma.
It's really interesting to be in that position because very frequently I have to reject isn't really the right word, but just not facilitate something, and it's not because it isn't good. See, this is something that I used to think, oh, that record company doesn't want to sign me. That festival doesn't want me to play. That club doesn't want us to play. And you take it personally when you're the artist. But when you're on the other side of the desk, there's so many other factors involved. Like you might already be working with another artist who's similar, but that doesn't mean that they're not both excellent. Maybe you just have too many acts, or this year you're not going in that direction artistically. And there's so many times when I have to do something that to the artist might appear to be rejecting them. And in fact, I have the highest respect for them. So, you know, if you walk into a store and you choose to buy a chicken, that doesn't mean that you reject fish or that you reject steak. It's just, today I want chicken.
Just because you choose chicken doesn't mean you reject fish. I'm a fish giving you the fish finger. I'm a selfish shellfish with a short shelf life. After 3 days, I'll start to stink. Oh, such a stink. Andy Kent, as someone who's been aboard... Oh, that fucks that question up. Can you relate to some of these themes, Anthony, of... I guess there's a line between rejection and failure. I suppose there's local radio not picking up your single, and then there's maybe listening back to your mastered release and realising there's way too much xylophone in the mix. So, yeah, these themes you've come across?
Yeah, well, I mean, luckily you don't realise there's too much xylophone until you've finished selling it to everyone that you can possibly try to get to listen to it. You've made everybody listen to it by the time that you realise it's bad. But I definitely identify with that, and I had an interesting experience a year or two ago. I was talking to my publisher quite a bit, and I had a new record, and I really wanted to find a label overseas for it, and I was sort of hassling my publisher a bit and saying, you know, organising Skypes and saying, you know, who are you going to send it to? Can you help with this? And my publisher was getting a little bit like, yeah, I'll see what I can, yeah, and just being very polite. And I talked to my friend who's a very good manager and not a self-managed artist, but more of a hard-ass manager person. And he said to me, look, you need to you need to let them know that you can turn off artist and turn on manager. And he said, you need to go to that person and say, look, I've got my manager's hat on now. Tell me, is Anthonie Tonnon a bit shit for this record label? And I did that. I went to him and said, look, I can turn this off. Look, talking as a manager for Anthonie Tonnon, what labels do you think are a possible fit for this? Who do you think has a better than even shot? And let's try and approach them.
Did you go out and change clothes really quickly and run back in and put on a voice?
Or is it just sort of a hat thing? Just maybe.
No, it's just mostly I changed my voice. Yeah, it's sort of less of a, this record, and more about.
So from North
hey mate,
Island
so
to South Island.
as manager, what do you reckon about this? Yeah, it's just you've got to turn on a slightly more forceful hat. Yeah.
Can you relate to that, Ben?
Oh, I have a lot of trouble keeping I just have to sort of do, like I've realised, there's sort of a bunch of things I wanted to say actually about what Jen said, mainly that I agree with all of it, but I sort of can't, I've got better at not writing passive-aggressive emails over about the last 10 years.
Oh yeah.
And doing that sort of waiting 2 hours before, and writing the email and not sending it, a lot of that sort of stuff.
A cool-off period from an email.
Yes, absolutely.
Write that down in your books. That's a good tip-off.
But yeah, I mean, for me, it's sort of like, I can't really do that switching roles so much. It's all a part of the same thing for me, so it's sort of like, I guess sometimes my emails are probably not formal enough or something, or, God, I don't know. There's just too much stuff to worry about without worrying about that as well.
What about how you process perceived rejections? Can you have that awesome perspective and go, well, I can see that the market isn't exactly looking for indie male singer-songwriter guitar-based music in this quarter.
No.
So that perfectly explains why my single wasn't given a big...
I mean,
or do you just go, fuck you. No, fuck you in the ground.
It's mainly the
sort of
fuck,
thing.
yeah. It's funny what Jen was saying about being envious. It's like, because of the way this industry is and because of the way capitalism is, we're all encouraged to compete. So it's this sort of, and it just doesn't make any sense in the context of art. And like I spend so much of my time, as so many musicians do, and they're lying if they tell you they don't, looking over your shoulder at the other people and going, why have they got that? Why haven't I got that? Why did they get successful? Why did someone what have they got that I don't have? And it's just, it destroys your soul. It is like, you have to come to a place like what Jen said, where you go, I'm successful on my own terms. People would kill to have what I have. If you had have told me when I was 18 that I would be doing this now, sitting on a panel at BIGSOUND talking about the fact that I would just be like, that is amazing. Like, you have to think about the positive stuff because rejection is that's just life, not just for musicians, for everyone in life. It's like, if you can't deal with rejection, and there's so much bullshit in this industry about people like not just saying what they think, as though if someone says, you know what, I don't really like your music, as though somehow I'm going to punch them in the face or something. It's like, that's fine. Like, I really don't mind. Like, it would be nice if you did, but like, I'd prefer that you liked me as a person than you liked my music. Like, it's sort of, I prefer to just not be an asshole and be like, And it's funny, there's another thing I wanted to say about this topic as well, is that I read something recently on the internet that was like, you should get rid of the people in your life that don't give you a fuck yeah. It's like, if you are going to enter into some sort of relationship where it's business or art or anything, you want people around you that are go, fuck yeah, I want to do that. I want to do that with you. I want to release your album. Or I want to be in a band with you. And the people who are sort of like, oh yeah, maybe just get rid of them. Like, you don't have to hate them or anything. You don't have to be angry at them. You just go like, cool. Well, if you're not into it, that's fine. And find the person that goes, fuck yeah, I want to do this stuff with you, because life is just way too short. At the end, bananas.
Thanks, Ben. Great words.
Like the cynicism in the music industry, the cynicism and cynicism is the most shithouse thing. It's like there is so much cynicism, so many haters. And I'm just as bad as everybody else, but you have to try and get rid of that, because it's like no one. It is the easiest thing in the world to sit and just go, that's shit. It's like, well, you do something then. You can hate me all you like, but until you do something, I consider that I'm still winning out of this, But it's not a competition.
No. But if it was, I think I wrote a little something about this And actually, my self-help meets self-cry for help book, Funemployed, looks like a supportive sort of me contributing to the community, but it's actually a very sophisticated, super underhanded attempt to psych everyone else out about how hard it is to be an artist in Australia, just to knock out some of the competition. But from the ripping velvet of my mucus dreams emerged a black shape, aloof, alert, eyes narrowed, tail sweeping from side to side. It sat at the feet of my ego, casting a cool judgment over the world. If depression is the black dog, then jealousy is the black cat. If it saw a comedian on TV, its green eyes would glare as it lashed out at the screen. Fuck you. The competition is rigged. We could do a better job. Why should we languish while mediocrity thrives? Because that's how cats talk. Jen, have you had your own black cat that's kicked about?
Like exactly what I was just ranting on about before when I got on my little soapbox. But and look, I think that for me, I think the best place to direct your energy when you feel that wave of envy, or you see someone's Facebook feed and it looks like they're winning at life and you're feeling really disconnected.
Just direct the energy to blocking them. Directly block them, and is to turn to your own practice and do something positive toward your songwriting. Send that difficult email, go and update your website. I know it sounds kind of a bit, inconsequential, but that has been the best way for me to get over that stuff, is to take the focus off others and just focus on myself. And just look, this was another really handy thing, was to just look at what the definition of success is for you. So for me, I'd often go, Ben Salter's fucking touring America, that prick, why am I not touring America? And then when I looked at it, I went, am I willing to do what it takes to tour America? Am I willing to uproot and go and live in America for however long it takes, playing to 10 people, possibly going into a lot of debt, leaving behind my community here, or, really looking into it. What am I willing to do? And if I'm not willing to do it, then accepting that where I am is just fine. And for me, when I looked at that, I went, well, my level of success is actually, I want to be in Australia. I want to have a backyard where I can watch plants grow. I like having a cat. I like my community. There's a lot of things that keep me mentally and physically well by being in my little world. I don't want to be out on the road touring all the time. That might have been my dream 20 years ago, but it's not my dream now. And when I got really current with what I actually really was willing to do, then I was able to let go of this whole story I had running around where I should be or how it should look and why doesn't it look like this. And this is something I was talking to with some friends this morning, just after the sync panel. And I was just saying, if you're not having fun doing it now, there's something wrong. If you died tomorrow and your whole career as a musician was constantly longing and craving and not enjoying what you're actually doing, then there's a problem. You can turn to me and go, it's not fucking all right for you, Jan. You get to play to 100 people when you come to Brisbane.
99 now, you slagged Ben off. So.
But my point is, you've got to find the enjoyment in playing to 10 people. If that's how many people you're playing to, you've got to find the enjoyment in that. Otherwise, why are you doing it?
Yep. Totes.
Yes, write that down.
I think also, that's exactly right about you have to define success, and so often it's the same thing. And I hate to keep saying capitalism because it sounds like I'm about to sign everyone up to socialist alliance.
Do like a down with capitalism. Let's set this shit on fire kind of thing.
It also really warps people's idea of what success is. It's because you're just bombarded constantly with these images of this unattainable life. It just makes everyone miserable. And as an artist, like as artists, we should be above that, but we're more sensitive to it, I think, than anyone. It's like this, why aren't I like, and like I said, but all I have to do, and like you said, that just doing those mundane things where you go, it gives you a sense of control, and also just writing, simple as writing down, like thinking about a younger version of you, what they would have thought if you had have said, well, when you're 38, you will have like, you know, had an album produced by Gareth Lydiard and like, you know, be on a panel with Jen Cloher and done all these amazing things, toured to Europe playing to people's lounge rooms, you know, gone to, like, I've just done so many amazing things, and there are so many people that would give their whole life to have the opportunities that I've had in my life. So it's like, it just seems churlish to worry about what you don't have, even though you still do.
And interestingly, on that point, when I turned my attitude around on always wanting for something more and just started to be grateful for what I had, things went off. Like, I just drew awesome people to me in the creative field, in the business field. I didn't have to keep grasping. It was like the energy of wanting more is repulsive, and people feel it. They feel you come into the room and go, oh, they want something from me.
When I used to busk,
you know?
if I wasn't making any money, I'd get angry and angrier because I used to busk for a living for like 5 years. And you'd get more and more negative and less people would give you money. And it was this weird inverse thing. And then the more money you started to make, the happier you'd be because you're like, I've got enough to buy this, this, this and this. And you just go, I'll just do another couple of hours. And people would just start throwing money. It's exactly what you're describing in a real, like, people are just, that desperation is not attractive. It's never attractive,
Yeah.
you know.
I think, you know, just like, again, you know, just really practical stuff is just waking up every morning and just writing down 5 things that are good about your life and your music just today, and building off that. And when you build off that kind of platform or that kind of foundation, then it just gets more and more awesome. Like, I really believe that it's energetic. It's also that thing you might have experienced with a show. Like, if you announce a show and then you're really positive around that show coming up, and when you talk about it or just, you know, visualising it or thinking about it, I've found that, you know, when I put that energy towards something coming up in the future, rather than going, it's going to be fucked, I'm going to get on stage, my guitar's going to break, I don't know how to use that pedal yet, so-and-so isn't playing that part really well, you know, like worrying. Instead of worrying, like just putting in positive affirmative action towards that show comes, it's wicked. People come. You know, like I just can't say enough how much your attitude reflects everything out there. Take care of the internal world, external world takes care of itself.
Yes, look after your attitude as much as you look after your expensive music equipment, you might say, Jen. It's part of your kit, as it were. Hey, maybe we're getting into sort of mindfulness yoga territory, and I can see everyone's eyes really light up when I mention that. So I know it's actually not good for you to sit for too long, for more than half an hour. So I think everyone up on their feet, just for a moment, we're just going to take a little breather. We've been talking about some heavy concepts. You've been doing a great job as a listening audience. I won't necessarily take you through yoga steps, as people are a bit funny about that, but I've come up with boga, which is sort of a middle Australian ground. So the first move, everyone can do it, they're pretty easy moves, is like just where's my smokes? Have I hidden them up on the fridge? So it's like... And then it's like downward dag, which is all the way down to your toes. And then you're saluting the moon at this point. And then slowly bring it back up. And then where's my wallet? Which pocket's it in? Is that pocket? Where's my wallet? Oh, around here. Is it over here? And then just everyone in through your nose. And out through your bum. Nice and easy. Great, that's boga for you. Have a seat. Chill out. Just going to hear a little... look, Andy Kent couldn't grace us here, but I do have another member of UMI here via the power of technology. He said, pointing the clicker, the correct... Oh, here we go. How comforting is that noise? I love that. Yeah, no, unfortunately, this is one of the rare moments where foreigner won't help the situation. If you could just keep scrolling that way.
It's really interesting to be in that position because...
Love it. Another one. And another one. What would Tim Rogers do?
And I'm just a desperate person. I've got, these appetites that are for love and companionship and wanting to be alone and noise and silence, and they all just seem to conflate when on stage, and it just goes. And somehow that was considered by a few people to be interesting, and I've managed to exist on that. So that means you just get these periods of just real depression and elation and joy and sorrow and loneliness and feeling like you want to fuck the world, and that's all on stage, and then there's the detritus is the rest of the day. And that's when you just go and make yourself a fucking sandwich.
Thank you. That was Tim Rogers during his My Kitchen Rules audition tape. What is talk? We're nearing the end of this panel, which has been a fucking cracker, if I do say so myself. Thanks, everyone. But I just want to talk a little bit about medication. I think from what we've spoken about, we can gather that there's like just a clusterfuck of emotions going on any given day, and insecurities and stuff. And I suppose it would be safe to sum up that the average artist self-medicates with a few, Cooper's Greens after the show and, a few Champion Rubies or, with the thin filter, whatever your preference is, and maybe some harder stuff. And I just want to talk a bit about, the importance of counselling in this industry when, if it's not necessarily a psychiatrist or a psychologist, even just having a really good manager who can act as some kind of sounding board, as an alternative medicine and trying to keep in check with yourself. I don't know, has it been something that's come up for you, Anthony?
Well, I mean, the problem with that, of course, is that you've got to have a manager first, and it's a pretty long, hard road to...
it's pretty hard to be your own manager and calm yourself down, isn't it?
Well,
Don't have another beer. Have another beer.
We've all been in a dress, drunk in front of the mirror, having it out. But, yeah.
Or if you're going to music conferences looking for someone who's going to give you that pastoral care, those are strange emails to send out, or, there's going to be awkward one-on-ones. If you're
how do you cope with your darker moments?
Well, I wrote in a diary. A few years ago, I discovered the wonders of self-help books. After being I went to university as a really rational person, and science and empiricism, but a few years ago, I gave up smoking, and the way that I managed to give it up was to read a terribly written self-help book, which is the Alan Carr Easy Way to Stop Smoking. It's horribly written, very repetitive. Most of the book is written in caps lock, like, you do not need to. Right?
He's always yelling.
He's always yelling. But you know what? At the end of that book, I finished the last page and I stopped smoking for good, and haven't smoked in the last 5 years, a single cigarette. And that was magical. It was magical, mystical, witch doctor-y powers. And so I went on from there and I read Julia Cameron's The Artist Way, which is even harder to stomach because it mentions God a lot, and it's basically an Alcoholics Anonymous course for creatives. But one of the things that was in there was writing what's called morning pages, where you write 3 pages in the morning, and it's not an artistic exercise. You're not supposed to write so that you create, this beautiful montage. You're actually supposed to write, fuck this, fucking hate this fucking stupid act. They sound like me, but they're not as good, but they're more successful. And you just write that for 3 pages. And what happens is that you identify something in those pages. After writing something every day for a little while, little threads start to come through, like maybe you say it once a day, but only once, I should really go and do some writing sometime. I should do some writing. And that's what I started to identify, is that after doing that for a while, I was like, oh, I'm just not writing enough. I'm just not actually getting enough time to go and sit down in a room and try to write. Or, you know, there might be something else. It might be like you wish that you had time to exercise, or you wish that you, you know, could get a job in a cafe or something. But you just start to draw things that are maybe sitting at the back of your consciousness, and you start to act on them eventually.
So things like morning pages can be like, it's therapy, but it can double as a cool creative exercise to come up with some Bowie-esque abstract metaphors and shit too.
Yeah, well...
It gets you writing, which is one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah, it gets you writing. But I think the point of those particular ones are not to try to see them, you know, not to... I think part of the trouble with writing sometimes is that you're too expectant on getting value out of that writing time. You're like, I'm gonna write something really great today. Whereas if you go, I'm gonna bitch and whine, then it becomes a really pleasant experience, and it becomes something that you can do every day.
Yeah.
I mean, people like Pat Patterson have, you know, those. I've tried those like timed writing exercises where you try to get really great metaphors and you dive into sense imagery and all that kind of stuff. But I think I prefer the bitching and whining.
To have a break from your creative self by hanging out with your bitching self.
Yeah.
It's quality time. Have you had to have an intervention with yourself at any point, Ben?
Oh, every day. it's yeah, like I think the artistic field, or at least music, which is what I'm most familiar with, is interesting as far as mental health, because it's a lot more accepting of behaviours and maybe conditions that in another community might be, people would go like, there's something really wrong with you. But
do you think it's encouraging of them as well?
Well, I wouldn't say encourage. It's sort of a paradox in that on the one hand it's sort of good because that's what you want. Ultimately, is the best thing for people that are mentally ill is to feel like they are part of a community and to feel like, you know, they have a safe, they're not being judged or whatever. But then also because of the way that the industry is, with the drinking and smoking and drugs, and all those things are just so destructive. So it's
I'm
like
getting paid in alcohol a lot of the
yeah,
time
I
for
mean,
people
like,
that are anxious and
by
depressive.
by any of the currently accepted things about drinking, like I would be classed as an alcoholic, absolutely. Like I don't wake up in the morning and drink. I don't need to drink. Like if I didn't have alcohol, I wouldn't start getting the DTs or anything. But I drink heavily, like, and all the people that I know in bands drink really heavily as well. And it's not something I'm proud of, or but I think not talking about it is certainly not the best way to approach it. You know, I feel like I should just be honest, because like, yeah, and like, you know, I don't really use hard drugs or anything, you know, it's not, but alcohol's probably the worst one of all. I'd probably be healthier if I was a heroin addict or something, like, you know, it's a sad thing to say, but like...
But if you got paid in heroin, like after a gig, if someone handed you a couple of syringes and said thanks for your set, it'd be like, that's the seediest industry I've ever heard of. But you know, alcohol, it's all good.
Yeah,
so
and there's a real problem,
some
obviously.
double standards there.
Yeah, our culture in this country is really, you know, it's only when you go over to places where their drinking culture is very different that you begin to understand just how bad it is. In Australia, like it's embedded in the psyche of this country is like drinking, like, you know, and drinking to excess, you know, drinking to you spastic or to you, you know.
I feel like there's pressure to perform by being a drinker. Like I don't drink before I play, and where I have problems is afterwards. Is that
trying to come down. I mean,
yeah.
that's the other thing. It's just a roller coaster, and alcohol is a very easily available, effective depressant. You know, like it makes you feel more comfortable, more relaxed, especially at things like this where you've got to talk to people you don't know about yourself. Like it's just a nightmare. You get on stage, trying to get on stage and sing songs. I mean, when they interview people about their biggest fears, and I'm sure I haven't read the book because I'm sure I'm just repeating what is in your book, but most people say public speaking is like their number one most terrifying thing, and then they come up to you and go like, oh wow, I just don't know how you can get on stage and do that, what you do, where you know, you jump around and you sing these really personal, intense songs and then you talk shit in between. It's like, I don't really know how I can do it either. Like it's still terrifying. Like there's still moments where you come on stage and go, what am I doing with my life? Like, why do I feel the need to get on stage and have people I want them to like me. Like there's something really weird about that. So
Yeah.
I just drink a lot.
Apparently, if you get in your underwear, it like makes everything a lot more relaxed. Or I think I'm getting the advice around the wrong way, but I don't know.
Sort of like Martin Sheen in Apocalypse Now, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah. Angie Hart said, after a gig, you're so full of adrenaline. Like, what are you going to do? Go home and eat a salad?
Well,
I think makes a really good point. There's so much adrenaline.
I haven't drunk or taken drugs for 11 years. I stopped when I was 30 because I can't drink in safety. In that regard, I black out. I do and say things I'd never normally say and do. And I just felt like I was getting further and further away from the person that I really know I am. And I wasn't proud of it. So I made, a difficult decision to go and address that problem, and I sought help. And if there's anyone out there who wants to talk to me about that, you're very welcome to approach me afterwards about how I did that. But what I can say is that the first year of performing without alcohol or drugs in my system was excruciating. I felt insane. But since that point, I have never enjoyed performing more. Performing sober is better than any drug, any drunk, any high I've ever experienced. And I've also found that my need and desire for approval and for love from external sources has dissipated as a result. And I feel like when I'm on stage, it's become much more about what I can give. And I know that sounds a little bit... I'm just editing myself because I don't want to sound like a fucking wanker. But I just want people to know that, it is possible.
Maybe we should have a talk after the jam.
Yeah.
But it is. It is possible to live without that stuff and to have a life in rock and roll and to hang out with people in your band that drink and to tour with alcoholics and not have to pick up a drink.
Thanks, Jen. It takes work. It takes a lot of hard work, I would imagine. But it's good work on top of the creating and the touring and the other bullshit we do. It's like working on yourself.
It's like fitness.
Is important.
It's like you go to the gym. It's just mental health. I think the discussion of mental health within our community is also probably on the cards next is a really big issue. But you don't go to the gym once and expect to remain healthy. You really have to take care of your mental health. And, however people do that, reading a inspirational book, getting help.
Like Funemployed by Justin Heazlewood, Life as an Artist in Australia, which will be available out the front for only $25 after the conference.
Can I do one little question? Who in this room is a musician, performer, artist? If you could put your hand up. Okay.
That's awesome.
Who in this room is working in the music industry? Oh, that's good. Good on you. Good on you for coming and actually giving a shit about artists. I salute you.
Thanks, dudes. That seems a fitting note to end Funemployed. The sequel, the difficult second Funemployed, which I think I would put in a sort of Terminator league of sequels where it sort of equals and surpasses the original. And that was only possible through the amazing truth bombs that were thrown liberally by Jen Cloher, Ben Salter, and Anthonie Tonnon. Thank you so much, guys. It's good to talk. Better out than in. Better out than in. If Khaleesi from Game of Thrones is the mother of dragons, then artists are the mother of cats. Birthing ideas, carrying them to term, suffering morning sickness, craving strange foods, watching our egos swell to abnormal sizes, tearing ourselves apart to give birth to an ungrateful, aloof tabby that may later provide a comforting pet for a child or senior, before eventually running away, turning feral and destroying native fauna in a somewhat confusing metaphor. This writer needs bed rest. I've been Justin Heazlewood. Thank you so much. I'll be out the front peddling my wares after the show. And I'd like to just leave you with this video presentation. Oh, no, that's... Yeah. This little guy. Thanks so much. Have a great Big Sound.
Thank you.
I don't know what I'm doing with my life, or maybe I do have a rough idea, or at least I used to, yeah, but now it's gone away. They say you shouldn't worry too much or overthink things, oops, too late, I just did. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, I'm just trying to be the best person I can be and create some art that people like, and maybe change them a little bit and improve the world in a small way. Can you really do that with a rambling folk song? Please fill out my questionnaire. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, not that anyone else does either really. We're all struggling in our own way, looks can be deceiving. Remembering this fact creates empathy, we're all in this together. Having said that, can I borrow money? I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Oh, for God's sake, snap out of it, Justin, you're doing fine. Who said that? It's me, I mean you, I'm your conscience. Well, I appreciate the gesture, but I don't need hearing voices thrown into the mix. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Obviously I've made it this far and I have something of a name for myself, and I know that I'm talented and this is what I want to do, but at this point I'm so far in debt I don't need a record company. Seriously, can I borrow money? I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know what I'm doing with this song. I hope I haven't ripped the chords off, it sounds kind of familiar. Maybe it's Pachelbel's canon. Hasn't that guy been dead for years? Is there a lawyer in the house? I do know what I'm doing with my life. Sorry, that was just a typo, Control Z. I really don't know. Like my nan said, you've chosen a very hard path in life. There's always someone worse off than you, and that person is me in 10 years. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, but obviously the fact I've said all this shows that it is something that I really care about. Confusion gets a bad rap, but it just means you're considering all the options, and surely that comes from a place of love for yourself. Thank you. Give these guys a hug if you see them. Thank you.